ignoring the fact that all of the fandom infrastructure we have is due to people who are definitely adults.
Absolutely.
A 16-year-old is not coding AO3, you know?
Yeah.
No, definitely not. I don't know. I used to read a lot of fan fiction. It wasn't for Supernatural. It was for anime, but I guess the only reason I stopped was because I started engaging with the things I liked in a different way.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. But yeah, I definitely do think people do have this idea that they need to give up fandom and fanfic and stuff as they get older, and that's absolutely untrue, obviously.
Oh yes, be your cringy self. Like things. You're more interesting when you like things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I remember even seeing, what was it? I took like this copyright course, which makes it like in college, which was more like English than like lawyer stuff. But a lot of interesting points, I think, with how society is now is that we tell ourselves that we can't be into certain things unless it's like bettering ourselves or it's making you money somehow or it's like a useful thing that you're doing. And fandom never really falls into any of those categories. You really can't like monetize it for the most part. You know, sometimes you see some people maybe work their way around it, which has like maybe its own issues that we won't get into, I would say. But
it's a slippery slope. I'm just saying, if you're doing stuff that monetizes your fanfic, your fan works, I mean, good for you, but just be aware that it is a slippery slope.
The secret is to write fan fiction for things that are in the public domain.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, my Great Gatsby remix. Just wait till that drops 2024.
Oh yeah, I started an Alice in Wonderland fan fiction when I was like 13. It's still there somewhere.
Yeah, I do want to talk about like the writing of fanfic because I know everyone here has at least dabbled, possibly more than dabbled, and so I just wanted to talk about like that process of writing because it really, I don't know, for me is very in a lot of ways like writing fics that I want to read, which I think is where a lot of power comes from with fan works, but also giving characters a chance to do things a little differently or exist a little differently.
I know with me, I've never written any supernatural fan fiction, but I am working on a story that's using some of the characters from Edgar Allan Poe's stories. And one of my goals was to revive like all these dead female characters because he keeps killing them off and like give them their own stories and just do that. So yeah, we write the things we want to see.
One of our listeners asked me to ask y'all about what you guys have to say about community and power behind certain headcanons and tropes within fanfics like Transdean or Cass or Supernatural. This was JJ, also has a Supernatural podcast, and is Priestley67 on TikTok, who I've mentioned him before. It's like hey, I see myself in this character and it's powerful. I know for me, I love a good Transdean fanfic personally. But like I also, yeah, like there's power behind that. There's power in creating queer spaces for characters that, you know, networks weren't brave enough to give us.
Yeah, I think a part of the appeal about fanfic just in general is that it's transformative literature, and more so it's one, like a story, any piece of media realistically is out of the mind of the creator and into the hands of the audience or the consumer. That story can change and shift however the consumers deem best. And so that's why I think, you know, just like headcanon in general is super, super valid. And because you can't really, you know, say one way or the other, like unless it's explicitly stated in canon that, you know, it was this way or it was this way, you know, but even then I don't think that matters that much. I just like that there is, you know, that validity in headcanon because it is seeing yourself represented in a way that you wouldn't, you know, otherwise. And I think that there's an innate power in looking at a character and saying, well, there's this, and like, who's going to tell me I'm wrong? And like, sure, somebody may think, okay, well, you're wrong or whatever, but you're not really, because once something leaves your mind and it enters the universe, it's like a whole other thing. It's not really wholly yours anymore if you put something in front of an audience, because people are going to attribute different meaning to different things. They're going to read into things differently. And I think that's super neat. And that's a big part of why I like fanfic so much.
Yeah. And like you've been involved in fanfic and fandom like since you were a kid.
Yes. So I first got into fanfic in like 2011, I think. It started with the Hunger Games, but even before then, like before I knew like fanfic had a name, the whole reason I stumbled across fanfic was because I was was always thinking, okay, well, what if this happened in the story instead? Or what if this happened? Or what if we took this character and made them do this? And I was like, surely other people are doing this too. Like, they're thinking these thoughts. And so one day I literally just Googled stories about the Hunger Games, and it led me to fanfiction.net. And I was like, okay, so I'm not the weird one. Like, I'm pretty normal through this, which is ironic in my like line of thinking, right? Surrounding fanfic and just like society's perception of it. But I never looked back after that. It was an incredibly like validating moment to know that I wasn't the only one who had thoughts about fictional characters. But yes, I've been in this game for a while.
I'm a few years younger than you, but definitely that era, because the Hunger Games was definitely, I think, where I really got my start. I think I might have a little bit with Harry Potter before that, because I started reading Harry Potter when I was like 8. Mm-hmm. But I definitely remember Hunger Games like 2013-ish, like having a bit more internet access, because I lived in the middle of nowhere where there wasn't internet for the longest time. But like having internet access, like sitting at the library, like, yeah, reading fanfic, and like, yeah, I don't know. It's the age for it. It was the era for it. Like the Twilight, Hunger Games, like YA era was really a moment. And I don't want to say it drove fanfic, because obviously fanfic existed long before then. But I don't know. There's no end to that sentence.
Actually, that is interesting that you bring that up, KJ. I was thinking about that because I think we're almost entering a new era of how people view fandom. I mean, I don't know if you guys remembered how this was. I was like in middle school when the first like MCU movie came out, and I don't even know if they thought it would be an MCU thing, right? But like comics were just not something that like normal or like popular or cool people cared about at all. People were like, who the hell is Iron Man in like 2008, right? And now it's that like all of that stuff is so mainstream. And obviously fandom doesn't have like billions of dollars in marketing and stuff, but I see stuff on TikTok where you have very popular, say, book talk accounts, but you have these people who are maybe younger and they're reading all these traditionally published novels, but then they're still talking about an interest in fandom and fan fiction as well, and they're bridging that gap. So, I mean, I started writing fan fiction probably, I think like 15 years ago, yeah. So it's been like a long time, but I mean, I think it really gives voice to like all these different perspectives that you're just not going to necessarily see in mainstream media. It's such a low entry barrier. So you can write about your own experiences as a gender non-conforming person, or as a trans person, or a queer person, or as a woman, if it's a traditionally male populated story, and you can transform it however you want. And then, you know, you don't have like a board of directors to answer to about if this is going to make money back or not. So you can really see this whole perspective that you really can't get other places.
Yeah.
Fan fiction, for one, you know, it operates on a gift economy. Fandom in general just operates on a gift economy, which is to say that, of course, there's no monetary gain being made, but, you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to write this thing and not expect anything in return, but, you know, people will, you know, maybe leave a nice comment or kudos or something like that. And so I think that's why fandom is still able, or fan fiction, but, you know, fandom in general is able to operate as an accessible means of storytelling, because it hasn't been corrupted by any sort of monetary undertones or what have you. People are creating simply to create, and just it's accessible because of that. You can, like, whatever level you are at, whatever kind of like story that you are looking for, whatever body you live in, you can find yourself somewhere in some story. And if you can't, then you can write it and you can be that person for, you know, the other people who are like, or who have a similar and shared experience.
Definitely.
Yeah. I know. I like discovered fanfic and immediately started writing it. Like, I did attempt to scrub myself from the internet a few years back. I did not fake my death, but we can't all do that. It doesn't work if we all try it.
I thought about doing that. I also thought about doing that because of a Destiel fan fiction, but
I have an adult job that required a security check that required me to hand over all of my internet handles. So I did attempt to scrub my fan fiction writing from the internet as best as you can. Because, you know, once it's on the internet, it does exist forever. But you can, you know, at least remove it from the surface level of the internet. And sometimes I'm a little bit sad that happened, because I would like to go back. You know, I wasn't writing supernatural fanfic back then, but, you know, I had other fandoms that I was interested in, and because I just wanted more. A lot of, you know, shows, you know, that ended too soon, or book series that, you know, I would have liked either a different ending or, you know, another book or, you know, whatever. And like, you just want a little bit more, and other people do as well. And sometimes you're like looking for that thing and you you find a lot of new endings. I've read a lot of 1520 fics, but I didn't see any that did exactly what I wanted, so I wrote my own, and that was nice. Yeah, you put stuff like that out there, and exactly like Berk said, you don't expect anything in return, but you get a nice comment, and it feels good. It does give you the serotonin.
It really does. I do love the comments. I really do.
I literally told you both not to do any notes, so I'm just like spraying stuff on you and like hoping y'all have answers. If you had to think of like the nicest comment you've ever received, maybe not word for word, but like
I have gotten a few comments on the rewrite that said that they've never watched Supernatural at all.
Wow.
But for some reason, they're reading this rewrite. I don't know why they wouldn't pick a slightly shorter rewrite. I feel like there probably is one out there. But one that came up recently was not like a comment on my fan fiction, but it was someone who reached out to me on Tumblr because we were in the same fandom years ago. And they said because we had been chatting and I was a bit older, I think I was in college, maybe. I can't remember. But they said that because of the fics that I wrote, that they got into writing. And then when it was time for them to like apply to college, they ended up applying for and are currently in the process of getting a degree in creative writing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they were like, thanks, you inspired me. I'm like, what? Hello?
I did what now?
Yeah, so
is that safe?
yeah, I feel like we would DM sometimes, but it was never like we weren't even like super close friends or anything, but I think they just liked the stuff that I put out there, so that stuck with me.
Accidentally a mentor.
I get so many nice comments that I can't pick one, but it's like, I think, so of course, you know, I thought heavily about like deleting all of my old fic that I like wrote in high school, because it's like, I am not exactly the same person, definitely not the same writer, and I look back and I read those and I'm like, it's not like it's bad, but it's also not good. You can tell that I was like 6-year-old just writing whatever. And so just like on occasion now, because I guess, you know, I somehow lucked out on having the same username for every platform that I'm on, but also I have the same username for every platform that I'm on. And so it's very easy to find me anywhere, especially on AO3, and having like people go back and read the stuff that I wrote in like 2014, 2015 and like have nice things to say about it. That's really validating. Also, recently somebody handbound all the fic that I had up, like all the little one-shots that I wrote, and sent it to my PO box. And so like there wasn't the comment, but like that act in itself was incredible. It gives me the warm and fuzzies, you know?
That's incredible, honestly. Whoever did that, that's amazing.
Just fulfilling the dream of having your writing as like a physical book.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
That reminded me of like a really important point that I wanted to make, which is, you know, we all did start writing in our teens. Fanfic is a great way to evolve as a writer. Like, you're never going to be a great writer when you're 16 unless you put the effort in. Like, it's just, you're only going to get better at writing over time. And yeah, it can be cringy to go back and read your own stuff from years ago. I'm moving, so I'm like finding stuff, and I found a USB that had a lot of my writing from when I was in like 7th grade, so like 10 years ago. And yeah, it's pretty bad, but but if I hadn't written it, I wouldn't be writing any of the stuff that I'm writing now. And fanfic is a great way to, you know, experiment and do stuff. And, you know, the thing, you can do a lot of stuff in fanfics that's not like really acceptable in like a traditional publishing sense. It's not going to be monetizable from a publishing perspective. You can just kind of do whatever you want, and that's very freeing and very good for people who are just starting out, or, you know, people who want to get better even if they've been doing it for a long time.
Well, it also allows you to experiment with things that you never really would have thought of on your own, because you have like all these characters and this world and these different concepts, and you can just play with them and make something new.
Yeah, I will definitely fall into the trap of procrastinating by pretending to be productive by like obsessively researching stuff to be like accurate, when really it's just like a procrastination technique. When you're writing fanfic, if you want to write, like, for example, a canon compliant fanfic, then the world exists. It has been built for you by a team of writers and TV professionals or movie professionals or book professionals, whatever your fanfic's about. And so like that is like an aspect that is removed. Or, you know, if you're writing a AU, you know, a college AU or a coffee shop AU, like those are fairly universal. There's some variation between seen each one, but the gist is kind of the same, and there's a lot of world building just kind of taken off your plate, and you can kind of just have fun with the characters and the dialogue and whatever else it is that you feel like you need to include.
I will say though, things have gotten nicer. I don't know how many of us had our start on fanfiction.net. Yeah, so like AO3, honestly,
Journal. Oh my god, I went on live.
I hopped from Wattpad to AO3.
I didn't hop anywhere. I just stopped posting.
I somehow missed the whole Wattpad craze. I went directly from fanfiction.net to AO3. And so I missed, people, apparently there was a very, just like in this way that there is a very specific fanfiction.net experience, there's a very specific Wattpad experience that I'm just not privy to. And I'm a little upset about it, actually, as cringe as it apparently was, it does sound kind of fun. And I had an idea in my head when I started talking about this. Okay, yeah. So fanfiction.net, though, people on AO3 are